You know that feeling when you wake up from a dream and it's so vivid, so real, it feels like?
Yeah.
Well, like it's more than just your subconscious playing tricks.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe it's a warning or an inspiring idea, maybe even a profound comfort. Dreams just have this incredible power, don't they?
They really do. It can feel like genuine glimpses into another reality sometimes.
And that feeling, that experience of dreams as something more, it's ancient. It's been a source of guidance, healing, perceived divine communication across cultures for millennia.
It's true. And that's really the core of what we're exploring today.
Exactly. Welcome, dear listener, to our deep dive into some fascinating ancient folklore and spiritual traditions. We're drawing specifically today from Part 2, Chapter 4 of Sir James George Frazer's huge work, Folklore in the Old Testament.
A monumental piece of scholarship.
It really is. And our mission, our focus, is to unpack that famous story of Jacob's dream at Bethel. But then connected to this really surprising global tapestry of beliefs. We're talking divine encounters, heavenly connections, and the enduring sanctity of, well, humble stones.
Right. What Frazer does so brilliantly is gather all these parallels. He shows how human beings, across totally different cultures and times, seem to have grappled with the spiritual world using remarkably similar patterns, similar symbols.
It shows this shared human quest for the sacred, doesn't it?
It really does. Quite fascinating.
Okay, so let's get into Jacob's story first. It starts with him, well, not exactly at his best moment.
No, definitely not.
He's just cunningly tricked his brother Esau out of his birthright and blessing. And this leads to a pretty anxious departure from Beersheba, heading towards Haran.
And it's interesting, the Bible gives sort of two reasons for him leaving. There's the Jehovistic narrative where Esau's furious, understandably, and Jacob flees his wrath.
Right, makes sense.
But there's also the priestly writer's version where his parents, Isaac and Rebekah, want him to go find a wife among their kin back in Haran, not marry a local Canaanite woman.
So different motivations presented there. Either way, he's on the run, or at least on a very urgent journey.
And Frazer notes there's this little touch about his mother, Rebekah, who helped with the deception, a kind of bittersweet reflection maybe on her own youthful journey compared to now, adds a human layer.
Right, so picture Jacob. He's weary, he's traveling through these bleak uplands of Judea. It's high up, about 3,000 feet above sea level.
Desolate country.
Totally, just a wilderness of stony fields, gray rocks. And Frazer mentions these weird forms of pillars, menhirs, or cromlechs.
Yeah, ancient standing stones, stone circles, remnants of earlier peoples. Spooky landscape.
Very. So darkness falls, he's exhausted, finds a spot, grabs a nearby stone for a pillow. And not exactly comfortable, I imagine.
Probably not. And then he falls asleep.
And this is the moment, the pivotal dream. He sees a ladder, a sapa, reaching from earth right up to heaven.
And angels are ascending and descending on it.
Just an incredible image. And God himself is there, standing beside him, promising the land he's lying on to him and his descendants.
A direct, divine promise in this incredibly desolate place.
He wakes up and he's terrified. He says, "How dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven."
That sense of awe, of the numinous.
Absolutely. So he immediately takes the stone he used as a pillow, sets it up as a pillar, a masabah, pours oil on it in an act of consecration, and names the place Bethel.
Which means house of God.
Exactly. Transforming this random stony spot into sacred ground through his experience and actions.
And the narrative notes a change in him, doesn't it? His spirits lift. Even the landscape seems to brighten as he travels on.
Yeah, he goes down into the rich lowlands of Ephraim, past terraced hillsides, fig trees, olives, flowers everywhere, birds singing. A complete contrast.
And this is where Frazer offers his key insight. He suggests the story of Jacob's dream wasn't just a historical account, but likely an etiology, a foundational myth. Meaning it was told to explain and legitimize the immemorial sanctity of Bethel. This place was probably already sacred to the local Canaanites, the Aboriginal inhabitants, long before Jacob or the Hebrews arrived.
Ah, I see. So the dream story kind of claims this ancient sacredness for Jacob and his lineage.
Precisely. It anchors their connection to this powerful site.
Okay, that makes sense. And it leads us right into the next big theme. This widespread ancient belief in dreams as, well, divine oracles.
Yes. Frazer emphasizes how common this was. People believed gods revealed their will, gave guidance, cures, warnings, all through dreams.
And they wouldn't just wait for these dreams to happen randomly.
Not always. People would actively go to temples, to sacred spots, specifically to sleep there, a practice called incubation, hoping for a divine dream.
Like making an appointment with the divine.
In a way, yes. Frazer gives some great examples, like the sanctuary of Amphiaraus in Attica.
Who was he?
A dead soothsayer, essentially deified. People would go there, sacrifice rams, then sleep on the freshly flayed skins right there in the sanctuary.
Wow.
And they expected revelations, especially cures for sickness. They'd pay for the cure afterwards by dropping gold or silver coins into a sacred spring. Frazer paints a picture of it being quite a pleasant spot, actually, in a little glen, good for invalids. But there were rules, fees, priests involved.
A whole system.
Right. And even more famous was the sanctuary of Aesculapius, the god of healing, near Epidaurus. Huge place, extensive ruins still there today.
Good physician.
That's him. And again, they had special dormitories, abatons, where patients slept hoping for a cure delivered in a dream by the god.
And we know what kind of cures they hoped for.
Oh, we do, because archaeologists found these amazing votive tablets, thank you notes, basically, inscribed on stone, recording the cures, and some are just incredible.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, well, there's a man whose fingers were paralyzed. He apparently scoffed at the tablets, claiming cures, maybe thought it was all nonsense. In his dream, the god Aesculapius came to him, seemed to grab his hand and stretch out his fingers. He wakes up, and his hand is healed. He was apparently nicknamed the Unbeliever after that.
That's brilliant. What else?
There's Ambrosia, a woman blind in one eye. She also mocked the cures, apparently. The god appears in her dream, says he'll cure her, but she has to dedicate a silver pig to the sanctuary as a thank you.
A silver pig.
The silver pig! He then performs some kind of dream surgery on her bad eye, and she wakes up able to see.
Unbelievable. Some sound almost like modern surgery stories, but happening in dreams.
Some really do. Like Oropus, who had a spear splinter stuck in his jaw for 6 years. Aesculapius pulls it out in a dream. Another man from Tyrone dreams the god cuts open his chest, removes worms, stitches him back up, and he wakes, holding the worms.
Good grief. Worms in his hand.
Apparently so. Others involve serpents, which were sacred to Aesculapius. A man with an ulcer dreams a serpent licks it clean, and it heals.
And it wasn't just physical healing either, right? You mentioned someone learning a skill.
Yes, Aegistratus. Cured of a headache, but also taught the pancratium, that Greek combat sport, in his dream. He later won a prize in the Nemean Games.
So divine intervention covered career advice too.
Seems like it. And fertility was another big one. Women dreaming of serpents, often interpreted as the god himself, and subsequently having children. Like Andromeda, who dreamt a serpent lay upon her, and she later bore 5 children.
It's just astonishing. The power of belief, the placebo effect maybe, but also just the sheer detail in these accounts.
It really paints a picture of how deeply people engaged with these sacred sites and the hope they held. And Frazer lists others too, oracles in Laconia where Spartan leaders sought advice, sites in Italy involving sleeping on animal skins. It was a very common practice.
Seeking guidance through dreams and sacred spaces. Okay, so that ties back to Jacob sleeping at Bethel. But what about the ladder, that image of connection between earth and heaven?
Right, the heavenly ladder. Again, Frazer shows this isn't unique to Jacob's vision. It's another motif that pops up in surprisingly diverse cultures. It speaks to this universal human idea, maybe a longing for a pathway between our world and the divine realm.
So where else do we see this?
Well, in West Africa, some traditions speak of a time when sky gods and humans communicated directly using a ladder.
Like a literal ladder.
Apparently so. There's a specific story from Fernando Poe about a palm nut ladder connecting earth and heaven, but it got cut down.
Why?
Because a crippled boy and his mother tried to use it to basically invade heaven. After that, the connection was severed and humanity was left, as the story says, severely alone. A myth explaining our separation from the gods.
Wow, that's quite poignant.
Isn't it? Then you look at Indonesia. The Torajas and Central Celebes had myths about sky and earth being joined by a creeper vine, which Mr. Sun cut because people misbehaved.
Always human misbehavior.
Seems to be a common theme. They also had another way up, though, the rolled-up rattan, a kind of thorny vine you could climb if you performed the right rituals first.
Rituals needed, even for climbing a vine to heaven.
Yep. And the Bataks in Sumatra spoke of a huge fig tree whose roots reached heaven, or a special rock. But again, these connections were severed due to human actions.
It seems like there's often this lost connection element in these myths.
Very often. Or sometimes the connection is temporary, like a story from the Chermis people in Russia about God's daughter using a long felt scarf as a ladder to bring her flocks down to earth. It disappeared after she married a mortal.
A temporary bridge.
Yeah.
And some ladders weren't even mythical.
Exactly. Frazer points out instances where people set up real ladders not for humans to ascend, but to facilitate the descent of gods or spirits.
Okay, tell me about that.
In places like Timor-Leste and nearby islands, people put up a 7-rung ladder next to a sacred fig tree decorated with feathers, hoping the sun god would climb down it to bring fertility.
So inviting the divine down.
Precisely. The Torajas used simple plant stalks with white cotton strips as ladders for gods during sacrifices. Dayaks in Borneo used reed ladders for spirits to land on a roof and possess a shaman for healing rituals.
Fascinating. And ladders for the dead, too.
Yes, that's another major aspect, the belief that the soul needs a way to ascend after death. We see it strongly in ancient Egypt.
All right, the pyramids and tombs.
Exactly. The pyramid texts mention dead kings climbing rope or wooden ladders provided by the gods Ra or Atum to reach the sky, and archaeologists have actually found miniature ladders in Egyptian graves.
Wow. Tangible evidence of the belief.
Definitely. And elsewhere, too. The Mangars in Nepal place 9-step wooden ladders by graves for the spirit. In Russia, there was a popular belief in burying climbing aids, which led to this custom of baking dough ladders, lyseski, with 7 rungs for the 7 heavens and throwing them from church belfries as omens.
Dough ladders. That's amazing how these ancient ideas persist in folk customs.
It really is. Even simpler versions exist, like the soul ladders used by the Basisi and Jacun people in the Malay Peninsula. Just basic structures to help the soul leave the grave.
So, ladders connecting worlds, both for the living seeking the divine and for the dead ascending. It really puts Jacob's ladder in a much broader human context.
It does. It taps into something very deep about our relationship with the vertical axis, earth below, heavens above, and the desire for a connection between them.
Okay, so we've talked about the dream, the oracle aspect, the ladder.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the most solid thing in the story, the stone.
The stone at Bethel, right. As we said, Bethel remained important. It became a major sanctuary, especially for the northern kingdom of Israel under Jeroboam. He set up golden calves there, altars, a whole rival priesthood to Jerusalem.
And the prophet Amos denounced the luxury and injustice associated with it later on.
Exactly. So Jacob's story, Frazer argues, served to bolster Bethel's sanctity, justify its importance, maybe even justify the practice of paying tithes there, which Jacob vows to do in the story.
So it connects the site's legitimacy directly back to the patriarch Jacob and a divine encounter.
Precisely. But the core belief, Frazer emphasizes, wasn't just that the stone was a monument to the event. The ancient belief was likely that the stone pillar itself, the masabah, was the house of the deity.
Literally inhabited by the divine presence.
Yes, that the stone Jacob used, or the pillar set up, was believed to be tenanted by the Spirit, by God. That's why he calls it Bethel, house of God.
And this idea of sacred stones as divine dwellings, that wasn't unique either.
Oh, far from it. It's incredibly widespread. Frazer piles up examples. Think of the ancient Arabs worshipping stones. The reverence for the black stone at Mecca is a direct continuation of that.
Right.
The prophet Isaiah criticized Israelites for worshipping smooth, water-worn boulders and riverbeds. Pausanias, the Greek writer, noted that in ancient times, all the Greeks worshipped unwrought stones instead of images.
Unwrought stones, just natural rocks.
Yes. Like at Phera, there were 30 square stones named after different gods. Near Githium, a stone called Zeus Capotus was revered because Orestes supposedly sat on it and was cured of his madness. Even where sophisticated sculptures existed, like Praxiteles' famous statue of love at Thespia, they also still revered the original, ancient, rough stone idol of the god.
So the primal connection to the simple stone persisted.
It did. And Frazer details this systematically in Melanesia. In the Banks Islands or New Hebrides, spirits were associated with particular stones. A man finds an odd-looking stone, maybe shaped like a pig or a yam, dreams a spirit is connected to it. He makes offerings, perhaps gains success in farming or hunting, and soon a little sanctuary develops around that stone with others seeking its favor. Specific stones for specific needs.
That's very practical spirituality.
Very, and you see it all over. Smooth river stones representing gods in Anatium, magical stones for crops, fishing, love, war, weather, and Futuna. round painted stones for fishing success in the Torres Straits.
Amazing diversity. What about elsewhere?
All over Asia. In Timor, earth spirits lived in unusual rocks, identified through dreams, sometimes demanding sacrifices. The Torajas had their 7 stones of parting for invoking ancestors. Dayaks believed ancestor souls lodged in stones found by sorcerers. Karens in Burma revered certain stones they believed had inherent power and would even return if lost.
Even return if lost, like homing stones.
That was the belief. In India, almost every village had sacred stones, sometimes representing a whole group of local deities. The Naga in Assam had Putsi, a large stone seen as a dead god, still used for omens. In the Hindu Kush, oaths over certain stones were more binding than the Quran, sealed with annual sacrifices.
It's truly global. China, Africa, Americas.
Yep. Miaokia in China had natural stones and shrines. Ingluch in the Caucasus had sacred rocks for solemn oaths involving bizarre rituals. Madagascar had roadside stones as altars for the dead. Central African kings offered beer to stones for good crops. Rock spirits causing disease in Busoga, stones prayed to for children in Sudan. Huron Indians offering tobacco to a rock called Sanhohi Rasta for safe canoe passage and good trade. And the Mandan and Minatari Indians had an oracle stone. They'd leave offerings, smoke pipes to it, and the next morning interpretations were made from white marks that appeared likely secretly painted by priests, Frazer suggests, foretelling the future.
A sacred hotline interpreted by the priests?
Kind of. Even simpler, the Dakota Indians would just paint a boulder red and pray to it in times of danger. The act itself was what mattered.
Okay, so the stone itself is sacred, potentially a dwelling place. But what about Jacob pouring oil on it? Is that significant?
Hugely significant. Frazer draws a direct line from Jacob anointing his stone at Bethel to, for example, a documented Norwegian folk custom of smearing stones with butter on certain Thursdays for prosperity.
Smearing stones with butter.
Yes. He says this practice of anointing sacred stones with oil, fat, or similar substances was also incredibly widespread.
Give us examples.
Well, in classical antiquity, there was a stone at Delphi anointed daily with oil. The Greek writer Theophrastus described a superstitious man in Athens who would pour oil on smooth stones at crossroads and worship them. Lucian mentions it. Arnobius, an early Christian writer, even confessed that in his pagan days he used to adore anointed stones greasy with oil.
So it was common enough for Christian writers to condemn it.
Exactly, and it persists. Frazer notes modern Cypriot peasants anointing cornerstones of Aphrodite's ruined temple. In India, various groups smear sacred stones with red lead, ghee, clarified butter, or milk, especially stones representing village spirits or deities.
So the anointing is like feeding the spirit or consecrating the space.
Probably a bit of both. It's an offering, an act of reverence, marking the stone as special, activating its power, perhaps. We see it in the Kai Islands near New Guinea, a black stone smeared for success. In Madagascar, tomb headstones anointed with blood or fat, stones in streams, special stones for travelers or those wanting children, like the Vatobetroka, the prolific stone.
It seems to connect back to that idea of the stone being alive or housing a presence.
Exactly. Jacob's act fits perfectly within this ancient global pattern. The stone is the house of God, the domicile of the divine spirit, and the oil consecrates it, acknowledges that presence. And, as we mentioned, archaeologists have found those those standing stones in Canaanite and Israelite shrines, often with cup marks or channels, likely for pouring offerings like oil or blood.
So Jacob's story provides a patriarchal precedent for a practice that was likely already ancient in that land.
Precisely. It weaves together the patriarch, the place, and the practice into a foundational narrative for his descendants.
It's been a fascinating journey, really. From Jacob's dream, through these ancient beliefs and divine revelations via sleep, the universal image of ladders connecting worlds, and finally, this deep primal reverence for sacred stones found across the globe.
It really shows, I think, how Frazer's work, by collecting these seemingly disparate pieces of folklore, reveals these profound underlying human desires and patterns of thought.
A desire for connection. Definitely. Connection with the divine, finding guidance, seeking healing, trying to understand our place in the cosmos. These stories, whether you read them as history or legend, tap into something fundamental about being human.
Absolutely. That enduring quest for meaning, for interaction with something beyond the everyday.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to ponder. What sacred Bethels, or perhaps ladders, exist in your own life? Maybe they aren't a stone pillar or a literal ladder to the sky.
Right, maybe they're less obvious, more personal. Places, rituals, moments of clarity, things that connect you to that sense of the profound, the unknown, maybe the divine, however you conceive it.
And perhaps think about what ancient customs or beliefs might still echo, maybe unknowingly, in our modern lives, tying us back to this incredibly deep human past we've been exploring today.